Kirk Tober begins with a bang. You like that? Oh, yeah, I like that.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. the Jolly Green Giant, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. And I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for so long, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. And I thank each and every one of you that goes strong with me as everydayers. If you are staying up to the wee hours of Friday morning here on the East Coast to watch this show and make it your first listen, post-game listen, then all you got to do to become an everydayer, subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So we are talking about the first place Atlanta Falcons. Can they build on this win moving forward? We'll talk about the up and down night for the defense, but how resilient they are. But of course, we got to start off with the brilliant performance from Kirk Cousins in Kirk Tober, kicking off Kirk Tober just right. 42 for 58 passing, 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. What we saw tonight from Kirk Cousins and his Falcons offense was the explosive offense that we were all hoping to see from Zach Robinson, from Kirk Cousins, from all of these weapons. 8 20-plus yard plays in this game. They had 10 in their first 4 games. They had 8 alone in this game. You got 2 from Kadero Hodge, of all people, including the game-winning 45-yard walk-off touchdown to get the Falcons the 36-30 overtime win. 2 from Darnell Mooney, 1 from Kyle Pitts, 1 from Drake London, 1 from Bijan Robinson, and 1 from Ray McLeod. So they were able to spread the ball around to their playmakers. This is, again, what we wanted from this offense. It felt like they were close last week, right? They had a couple opportunities, some deep shots. I broke it down on the extended All-22 review for the Locked On Falcons Insiders. Link in the description below if you want to join and check that stuff out. And it felt like, hey, man, if they can just start hitting some of these explosive plays, this offense is going to start clicking, even if it isn't perfect, even if it isn't the well-oiled machine. And they hit those in this game, and things are certainly looking up for this football team. Now, it wasn't perfect for the Falcons offense or the team. You know, it's going to be fun to go back and look through the film and see just kind of how razor thin some of these margins are. You know, some of these passes, these tight window throws that Kirk is fitting the ball in. Some of these passes where it's like, I don't know what's going on. You know, was that a good throw? Was that a good decision? All that sort of stuff. That's going to be fun to do. You know, it's one of the things that the Falcons struggled with tonight that has gotten a lot of, oxygen, that I was just kind of like, whatever, man. Like, penalties, right? Penalties really hurt the Falcons in this game. It felt like every time the Falcons got penalized, they got 8 penalties. I think the most they've had this season. It felt like every single one of those was at the wrong moment. And it's funny because, like, to me, like, I've seen a lot of people talk about penalties, and it's like, yeah, they've had some tough penalties, like the one last week that, wiped out a touchdown and whatnot. But it was one of those things where, like, they were in the bottom third in the NFL in terms of, like, being the least penalized team in the league. So it's like, to me, I'm looking at that stat and I'm being like, yeah, penalties have been a problem, but they haven't been as big an issue as they are for other teams in the NFL. And in fact, you've gotten off relatively lightly, basically being, I think, going into this night, being the 11th least penalized team in the NFL in terms of total penalties and yards. But tonight, it certainly reared its ugly head, sort of feeding that sort of narrative, whatnot. But the Falcons were able to prove resilient and overcome those issues. Again, so many times in this game, it felt like they should have lost the game. It just was a back and forth, uneven game, just little details that just, they didn't take advantage of every opportunity they had, but then they did, and so it was one of those crazy nights, right, where it just felt like a bad process, right? It was just like a bad process, but you got a great result, right? You missed the field goal, you block a field goal, you have questionable clock management, all those various things. You miss a couple opportunities in the red zone, and it's sort of the bad process, good results is kind of epitomized, right, by that quick slant they ran to Drake London with 12 seconds left. He catches it, gains 14 yards, gets tackled. They rush to the line, they spike it with 1 second, like a fraction of a second. that game could have been costly, and we would have been sitting here eviscerating this coaching staff. This is the worst coach. Their clock management is terrible, all that stuff. We would have been going in on them off of 1 second. But hey, guess what? This is their identity, guys. They're a chaotic team. And speaking of chaos, we got to talk about the Kirk Cousins chaos meter. And of course, if you're unfamiliar with that, that is something that we have borrowed from Luke Braun, the host of the Locked On Vikings podcast. He has bequeathed the Kirk Cousins chaos meter to us. And there's 5 different levels of Kirk Cousins, right? Level 1 is the lowest level. This is where Kirk is too conservative for his own good. Level 2 is, hey, Kirk's out there. He's managing the game effectively. Level 3 is peak Kirk Cousins, where he's being a game manager, but there's just a little bit of chaos in there to get him to that peak level of performance. Level 4 is like, nope, this is too much chaos with Kirk Cousins, and bad things happen. That's what happened in week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then level 5 is like, this is so chaotic that it might be time that we dial up number 9, the southpaw. Give me the lefty out there. But this game clearly was a peak Kirk Cousins performance, a level 3 performance, because like you look at that touchdown throw he threw to Darnell Mooney, right, where he kind of threw it in, like, was it double, triple coverage or whatever the case may be? Like, I get where Kirk was coming from, but like Darnell Mooney, the contested catch guy, like that's not the throw that I would make to Darnell Mooney. That's a Drake London throw. That's a Kyle Pitts throw. But Kirk was like, no, I got my guy, Darnell Mooney. I'm going to layer it in there. And like I got some hits from the Locked On Falcons Insider. It was like, that was a level 4 Kirk Cousins chaos throw that had a good result. And so that's what we mean, where it's just like, you get the game manager Kirk, he's wheeling and dealing, just dial a little bit of that chaos in there, and it's like, that's where you get the peak version of Kirk Cousins. So the Falcons' identity is going to be this chaotic football team. Like, they are the embodiment of the Kirk Cousins chaos meter, where it's up and down, back and forth. It's not going to be clean, so let's talk about how it wasn't clean for the Falcons defense, but they stepped up in a major way in the second half, and we'll break that down as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Guys, Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, because it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike on other apps, Prize Picks is just you versus the numbers, right? Pick more or less on up to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. And if you're looking to get in on the action because certain sports books aren't available in your state, don't worry, Prize Picks is, and the withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. You can get your money in as quickly as 15 minutes. Go check out Prize Picks, see what those projections are, especially now that the Falcons game is done. You can just have clear eyes and mind going into Sunday. So check out the projections and download Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. So I'll let you guys know. I am not a fan of this Falcons defense. I have not been a fan of them at any point this season. Right? The Bucs come out in this game. They score on their opening 4 possessions. They take a 24-17 halftime lead. There's no pressure, non-existent pressure in the first half. They're not really stopping the run. They're giving up too many easy passes. D. Alford exits the game on the opening drive with a concussion, and the Bucs just proceeded to pick on his replacement, Antonio Hamilton. I'm sitting there going like, why are we asking Antonio Hamilton to play in the slot when he's an outside corner? He's spent the vast majority of his career playing outside corner. The Clark Phillips put him in the slot, but hey, it is what it is. And just like, it just seems like so many choices that the Falcons make. I'm just like, I do not like these choices. But all that said, second half, defense stepped up. They got more pressure in the second half. They got some stops. They forced 2 punts in the second half, right? They forced Tampa Bay to kick a field goal thanks to an Onyemata sack in the third quarter. Caden Ellis gets pressure on the subsequent drive to force another long field goal in the fourth quarter. Jesse Bates gets a fumble on the next drive that Caden Ellis recovers. And then, the Falcons squander that opportunity with a 4-and-out. Kirk throws an interception. But, we get a gift from the officials. Holding call, Graham Barton, huge play. That holding call is going to be probably the play of the game. That's really what gave the Falcons a chance. They save a timeout. The Bucs are forced to punt. The Falcons get the ball back with 1:14, and of course, Cousins and the offense do their thing and have all the drama to send the game into overtime. And so I say this, guys, all to say, like, I'm never going to love this defense. Again, I feel like the scheme is just built to just get gashed on the ground and give up easy completions throughout the entire game. But what this defense has done, despite me not loving the scheme and wanting it, I don't have much hair, but like what little else hair, like I'm going to start pulling on my beard. You're going to start seeing patches on my beard because I'm going to start pulling out the hair in the beard. But hey, I don't love it, but they generally have made good adjustments in the second halves of a lot of these games, and they play better, they get stops. And so it's like, I'm going to be pulling my hair out in the first half, but then I'm going to be gluing it all back in the second half because they are making the plays. And then so like at the end of the day, like, even though it's so frustrating to me to watch this defense do the things that they do, and it's like, why are you making it so hard on us? At the same time, it's like, this is kind of what we wanted, right? We didn't expect this to be an elite unit. We expected this to be a good enough, air quotes, good enough defense that if the offense is clicking, we can win football games. And that's what we got. We got a good enough performance from this defense, especially in the second half, a very good performance in the second half, a bad performance in the first half, but it all balances out to be a good enough performance. So I'm sitting here going like, what am I complaining about? This is what they are. Again, this is what I'm talking about with the identity of this team. It's just chaos. It's just going to be this up and down, back and forth, chaotic sort of thing. That's what they're going to be all season long. And we're just going to deal with it. So I'm going to have to find some balance, some zen, some meditation on the chaotic nature of this offense and this defense, that is going to be their pure identity this entire season. So I'll figure that out, but just wanted to point that out as I sat there just being like, what is this defense? I was ready. I was like, finally I get to go hard on this defense, at halftime, and then they figured it out in the end. So I'm appreciating it, shut me up in that regard. So last little tidbit I do want to touch upon before we talk about sort of how important this win is, at the end of the first half, the Falcons opted not to kick the field goal. They could have kicked a 56 or 57-yard field goal at that point in time. I made the mistake of thinking it was like a 67-yard field goal because for some reason I thought it was at the 49, not the 39. But they did not opt for that. Youngwick, who had missed a kick earlier in the game, or two kicks earlier in the game, one of them didn't count because of a penalty. And of course, the Falcons defense and special teams after the week they had would fall back down to earth this week. But Koo made the kicks in the end. Okay, right? That's what I'm talking about, guys. It's like Koo being terrible for 3 quarters and then amazing in the fourth quarter. So that's just how this team is going to be. But they didn't kick the field goal at the end. Probably, something had to do potentially with, do you want to kick another long kick with Koo having an off night? Don't agree with the decision, but I know a lot of people probably were looking at it like, well, if you kick that field goal, this game probably doesn't need to go in overtime. I don't know about that because, right, it was 24-17 in reality going into halftime because you don't kick that field goal. If you kick the field goal instead of punting it, right, and maybe Koo hits the kick, it's 24-20 going into halftime. The Falcons start off with another field goal in the third quarter to make it in reality 24-20. But imagine if you had the other field goal, it would be 24-23 at that point. The Bucs kick their field goal. They take the 27-23 lead in this hypothetical alternate reality where the Falcons kick the field goal. And then if the score is 27-23 at that point, on the next drive where the Falcons scored a touchdown because they went for it on fourth down and threw it to Darnell Mooney and he converted, great play by him. Do you go for it on fourth down if you're only down 4 points, or do you just settle for 3 and just go down 27-26? And so to me, basically the argument I'm making is, would the game have been 30-26 in those closing minutes as opposed to 30-27 like it was because you went for it on fourth down because you needed to make up for the points or whatnot, and instead of kicking the game-tying field goal to send it into overtime in the final minute with 1 second to go, final second, right? Do you need to have to score a touchdown in that situation because you kicked the field goal earlier and therefore you took the touchdown off the board? So that is something worth thinking about. Obviously, we know how it all played out, so it all worked out in the end. Again, questionable process, but you got the good result. But it's something to think about before people, I think, go too hard on being like, again, I'm not going to sit here and defend Raheem Morris and say he did it right. He probably should have taken the points, but in the end, it probably did kind of work out in the end, right? But again, bad process to not kick that field goal, but the Falcons got a positive result. So something to consider in that regard. But, let's talk about a couple of standout players in this game. Let's talk about the rookies, right? They're going to get a lot of buzz because, people have been chomping at the bit to see this 2024 draft class contribute in a way. And you got contributions from J.D. Bertrand, who we expected to replace Troy Anderson. And surprisingly, to me, not to other people, surprisingly, we did get a Rukaroro activation in this game. And he contributed. He made a couple of tackles and a couple of nice run stops in this game, contributing there. It was notable to me because we talked about this in the All-22 review from the Saints game, which was Kentavious Street was being asked to play the nose tackle spot behind Eddie Goldman. And in this game, I noticed time and time again, it was Grady Jarrett that was being asked to play that one technique nose tackle spot that Kentavious Street played last week against the Saints, rather than Rukaroro, who was playing more of that DN role when he did get opportunities to get there out on the field. And so it was interesting to see the Falcons go with that. We'll see if the Falcons continue that. We know Grady Jarrett has a history of playing a lot of one technique nose tackle. That's what he spent his first 3 years in Atlanta doing, and has done that off and on in the DMP scheme, particularly in 2021 and 2022 when the Falcons weren't getting great nose tackle play. So it'll be interesting to see if the Falcons continue that, or do they try and go out there, and whether it's LaCale London, whether it's potentially bringing a free agent off the street. I'm looking at someone like Josh Tupou or somebody like that. Do they go out there and get a true nose tackle, or do they just basically, hey, well, we'll just try to make it work with Grady Jarrett for the rest of the season, him and Eddie Goldman splitting those reps. So we'll see on that front. But J.D. Bertrand, his debut, it was solid from what again, the expectations are low. Like, I wasn't expecting J.D. Bertrand to go out there and be great. He had some ups and downs in this game, some coverage busts, a penalty at one point, or did they pick up the flag on that late hit? I think they did pick up the flag. I can't remember. Remind me if they picked up that flag. But, one of the things I expected, I didn't expect J.D. Bertrand to get a huge workload in this game, because I figured, okay, the Bucs are going to play a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. The Falcons are going to play their nickel defense. They're going to play some penny fronts. And for those of you not familiar with the penny front, that's their 5-1 defense, where they basically have 1 off-ball linebacker, 3 down linemen, 2 outside linebackers. And previously, Troy Anderson had been serving as an off-ball linebacker in that situation, and Caden Ellis, their middle linebacker, would kick down and play that one of those edge rusher spots. And so in the first half of this game, I was like, they'll probably have Caden Ellis playing the off-ball linebacker and have somebody else, Ebiketie, Lorenzo Carter, or whoever, playing on the edge or whatever instead. And that's what they seemingly were doing consistently early in this game. But I think they got a little bit more comfortable with J.D. Bertrand in the second half, because he started being that off-ball linebacker in the second half in their penny fronts, with Caden Ellis going back to being more of that edge rusher. And while I don't recall instances of him doing a ton as at the edge when they did play that penny front, he did get that notable pressure in the fourth quarter, rushing through the A-gap again, going back to something I talked about during the summer, which is that's where Caden Ellis is at his best. Rushing the quarterback is not on the edge. It's running through the A-gap, because he just blew through the center and the running back's block on that particular, and getting him matched up on a running back is more advantageous for Caden Ellis than it is getting him matched up on, say, a Tristan Wirfs or somebody like that on the outside. But good to see the rookies contributing. Now people can, I'm not going to say shut up about it, but now people can, at least have their cake and eat it too, I guess. I don't know if that analogy works, but we will wrap up today's episode, guys. We got to talk about Kirk Tober and this new era of Falcons football, right? This is not the first time that the Falcons have been in first place in the NFC South, sometime in the month of October, November-ish time. And will this team, under Kirk Cousins, under Raheem Morris, actually take advantage of this opportunity that they're given? And we'll break that down as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Those times when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you're watching Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield in this epic shootout, and you're like, I feel like something's going to happen. And if you want to put a little bit of money on the line, you can do that at the same place that you can place bets at FanDuel, where you can also check out the latest stats, the live play-by-play. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That bet is guaranteed, guys. So you just put $5. FanDuel's going to give you $200 that you can use on anything. You can use it on this weekend's action in NFL football, college football, right? You know, baseball season isn't quite going for the Braves like we wanted it to go. But hey, hope springs eternal for the Atlanta Hawks, right? So it's all available for you, though, at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So, guys, we are in Kirk Tober. The Falcons are 3-2. They get off to a 2-0 start in the NFC South. They are now in first place, right? And we've been here before, right? You know, we got here a little sooner than we have the last couple of years, right? The last 2 years got off to 4-3 and 4-4 starts to take that early division lead. In 2022, they were 4-4. They lost 4 of their next 5 after they got to that 4-4 start after beating the Panthers in the division, you know, and that led to Desmond Ridder taking over for Marcus Mariota. Last year, they got off to the 4-3 start, I believe beating the Bucs in week 7. And then basically 1 week later, when they lost to the Titans, they pulled the hook on Desmond Ridder. Like, we're not going to risk, you know, a month-long struggle, so we're going to pull that hook. And then they proceeded to lose the next 2 games with Taylor Heineke and his terribleness. But we'll let that go. And so, you know, now we're here 3-2. The Falcons have several games coming up, winnable games that, you know, what are they going to do? Is this Raheem Morris team going to do the thing that Arthur Smith's teams never did, right? And build off of this and can extend this, right? They have another NFC South matchup next week on the road against Carolina. Can they get off to a 3-0 start in the division? That's going to be the big question. Big thrilling night. You know, this is the Andy Dalton. This is the perfect makings of a trap game, right? That we always talk about. Oh, you're going to overlook. Oh, of course, we beat the Saints. We beat the Bucs. Of course, we'll beat the Panthers. So we'll get into all of that next week on the pod. But we'll see if the Falcons can do that. But even after the Carolina game, regardless of that result, you know, you got a home games against Seattle, road game against Tampa Bay, the rematch. You got a home game against Dallas, 2 road games against New Orleans and Denver before you head into the bye. And even if you, with those 6 games, if you manage to split 3-3, that's a good spot to be in if you go into your bye 6-5. I saw some stats from a couple of years ago when they were breaking down, you know, what your playoff chances based off of your record. And I think I saw where if you're 6-5, you have over a 50% chance of making the playoffs, right? And if you're 5-6, just 1 game difference, I think the numbers said that your playoff chances drop to like 25%. So getting to 6-5 or better going into the bye is going to be huge. And obviously, you know, 3-3, I'm sure many of you guys are like, what, 3-3? We can go 4-2. We can go 5-1. Hell, we can go even 6-0 or something like that. And so we'll see if this team can do that, right? Time will tell on that. But, you know, as I've been discussing all night, you know, the chaos factor, the moxie, right, of this football team, you got to feel good about it, right? It's not the prettiest way to win. It's frustrating. It's going to cause me to continue to pull my hair out, whatnot, and just be frustrated and just be sitting there as I was tonight, as I was, you know, a couple of weeks ago against the Eagles in the fourth quarter, being like, oh, well, they're going to lose this game. And then somehow in the final minute, they pull the win out of their butt, right? You know, and it's like every game is going to feel like you're on the verge. You feel like this team is on the verge of losing. And then you're going to be like, no, they're going to find a way to pull it out and just pull it out of their butts. And it's just like, does that make the Falcons a good team? Probably not. But like, you know, winning style points, hey, who cares? Just win, right? That's all we want. It's just to win games. It's been 6 years since the Falcons have had a winning season. Let's win some games and get to January. And you know, if we don't win it stylistically, if everybody's sitting here going like, I don't believe in the Falcons. They always pull these wins out of their butt in the fourth quarter. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. I don't care. But I'm sitting here watching my team play games in January. So I don't care how fraudulent or whatever people want to call it with this Falcons team. I don't care. I don't care, guys. So, you know, that's a long ways away. We're not there yet. We still got to get through Kirk Tober and then of course Kirk Vimber, you know, and again, stats, you know, if you think Kirk Tober is a hell of a month, Kirk Vimber is even better month. So the Falcons remain a work in progress at this point in time. It's been clear through these first 5 games of the season. They're going to be up and down. It's going to be uneven. We're going to continue to probably see ups and downs. We're going to continue to be like, can they stop the run? Can they rush the quarterback? Can they generate explosive plays? It's going to be all the same talking points that we've had for 5 weeks, probably continued. But hopefully, it's less, right? The offense continues to click. The defense, can we get second half version of this defense for 4 quarters? Again, maybe I'm asking too much. But we'll see what the Falcons do. But, as long as you're getting W's when you're working out all the kinks, I'm not going to complain about it. So I'll take it. I can't wait to rewatch this game over the weekend, get the analysis. We'll get that fresh for you over the weekend. But enjoy, guys, this weekend. Stress-free Sunday. We love a stress-free, Falcons-free Sunday. No stress on Sunday. We can just enjoy watching football, and especially coming off a Falcons win. You're not going to be watching these Sunday games being like, man, if only the Falcons would have done that. Blah, blah, that whole usual thing. We don't have to worry about that. So enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the win. We'll be back with more next week here on Locked On Falcons. So continue to make us your first listen. All you got to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it's available. And now that you've made Locked On Falcons your first listen, for your second listen, go check out Locked On NFL. 2 shows every single day. The first one from Madman Tyler Rowland, giving you that double shot of NFL espresso to kick off your morning. And then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It is all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every